Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this monthly in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Ag Carolina and Ag South Farm Credit. Now, first of all, I want to apologize. I try to get these out to you on the last Tuesday of the month, but I had some travel issues plus some server issues this particular month, and I'm a couple days delayed. But honestly, it was good that we had the delay because I now have more information about this upcoming tropical system that you all need to be keeping a close eye on. So as you're watching this animation of satellite data from Wednesday into early Thursday morning here on the 29th of August, I want you to be paying attention to a few different moving pieces. First of all, let me stop it here. We have clear skies this morning. And honestly, as we take a few moments here to look back over what's happened recently with the precipitation, it's been a pretty massive swing after Hurricane Debbie went through earlier this season. We've gone over very hot and very dry, and as a result, we've seen some changes in our drought situation, flash drought situation. But I do want to show you one thing that's going to be important here in a few moments. See this deep low yesterday along the Montana-Saskatchewan border here? This deep low is going to be a part of a series of low pressure systems that I think are going to reinforce themselves way up here in the northeast and impact our temperature and precipitation patterns to finish August, but really to get into the month of September. There's going to be some here, and there's also going to be some that are off of the northwest coast. And I want you to see where that's going to redistribute the heat. So pay attention to that in this forecast. The other thing is, I just want to show you this. Look at the wildfire smoke coming out of Idaho. Just incredible to see here. So I do some work for AgWest as well, and what used to be Northwest Farm Credit, and this is a major issue for them, which we'll be talking about in tomorrow's briefing for that region. But let's come back to the Southeast and look at the whole picture here of the United States and put the Southeast into context. These last 7 days, outside of some isolated storms, we've been very dry. Very dry. In fact, if we zoom in here and have a closer look at the last 7 days, most of Ag South and Ag Carolina territory didn't see a drop of rain over the last 7 days. Now, most of the last week was not hot. It only got hot here in the last couple of days, meaning that we could endure this okay because the heat had not been on for much of the month of August until right now. But this just shows you how that sagging frontal boundary that's been living right in through here has produced some Gulf Coast showers, some showers just off the southeast coast, but most of Florida's been wet. But we've missed a lot of our territory. Stretching it out to 2 weeks, same view, different variable. This is now the total accumulated precipitation, but as a percent of normal. And most of the deepest reds in through here show that we've had significant areas for at least 2 weeks that have not measured much precipitation. And this is becoming a problem because this has been a rapid development of some flash drought here at the very end of the month of August that we thought, honestly, I thought would be wetter. And one of the big reasons I thought it was going to be wetter was we thought we were going to see more tropical systems coming through. But reality is the month-to-date stats reflect one tropical system, and that was Debbie. And Debbie came through here and rolled right up through the East Coast. And that is why these climate reporting districts are having their wettest August on record, despite most of the second half of August not producing a single drop of rainfall. That's what one hurricane can do to bias these statistics. Now, more representative of what's been going on is just to your west, where this whole region has been dry. Very dry in parts of the Mid-South right now. In fact, I'll show you the Mississippi River update in just a few moments. But that region, so far in the month of August, is now having one of its driest, if not the driest, August on record, for example, in northern Mississippi. And that's why we've seen on the new drought monitor some abnormally dry beginning to creep into Georgia and South Carolina. But this has been the area of greatest change in drought here when we look back over the last couple of weeks. So as it stands, let's actually go get some of the data. Let's go into data, click on time series. And what we'll be able to see is, let's just zoom in on the very end of this. We now have 65% of the land area of the lower 48 in some form of drought, with 27.7% in D1 or higher. So drought has certainly expanded, and it's knocking on our door right now with this flash drought setup. So the tropics, you know that, you go back to maybe February. What have I been telling you ever since the start of this year? I expected this year to be really active. And we've got some tropical convection to be thinking about right in through here, and a follow-up system that just left Africa that's got some deep storms in it. But overall, this hurricane season, we've not seen a whole lot of maps like this. We've had 5 named systems. We had Ernesto that did this, we had Debbie that came through, and we had Beryl, and then a couple of systems before that. But overall, the Bermuda High's been in place. We've had the trajectory, but why have we not seen more risky areas like you see right now? We got to answer that question. But there are a couple of things changing. And we do now have a 40% chance of developing over the next week in this area, meaning into week 2, let's talk about 10 days from now and beyond, we have to be on the lookout for where this particular event could make it over the Greater Antilles, maybe toward the Bahamas, maybe into the Gulf, and what that might do to either hit the Carolinas directly, Georgia, or come out of the Gulf of Mexico and come in this direction. Now, I'm putting a lot of weight on this forecast. You see, this is the European model, next 10 days, predicting where there could be tropical low pressure developing. So here's 1, here's 2, okay? And as we watch this tropical disturbance could make its way toward a trajectory that would set things up for bringing rainfall into the southeast, maybe even a tropical system. Now, I'll be honest with you, I do not have much more of a sense on it than that. And I'll tell you very clearly here, if you look at what's going on with our probabilities, while they're high for development, there's still a lot of uncertainty on how this gets into this area. And I'll just be honest, this month of August has been extremely frustrating to forecast. And I thought it'd be good for me to tell you why I think I missed it. That's a good lesson for me, and then I think you'll learn a lot about the tropics. So let's spend just a moment figuring this out. It starts here. We know that this La Nina is trying to develop. And when we see La Ninas developing with such warm water, every one of us that forecast the tropics, the alarm bells start going off to tell folks above average hurricane season, above average hurricane season. And for those of you that got hit by Debbie, you know that the potential is there. In fact, I did hear recently that the USDA is paying out for insurance claims from Hurricane Debbie. Did you all hear about that? If not, go look it up. Numerous counties in Georgia and the Carolinas have been under the USDA. They met the USDA criteria for payout. So let's go make sure we get a good look at that. But anyway, that was the first ingredient. Those were the things we thought was going to happen. And look at that. The Bermuda High lived exactly where we thought it should between Bermuda and the Azores, meaning the flow was coming around. And this was our key indicator. This was going to push systems. Look at the arrows. Push these systems toward the southeast, increasing the risk. We had all of these pieces in place. But one big missing thing of 3, one big missing thing early was this. For most of August, the upper level best rising motion, I'll put a dot over it, was right in through this area. And every time we have it's called the MJO, every time the MJO is over in this part of the Indian Ocean or near Africa, we tend to get great African easterly waves that die as they move off of this into this area. And this is where we have suppression, mainly centered on the Caribbean. At times it's been in the Gulf of Mexico. It's been in the Atlantic. So what you need to think about when you look at this is the best place for storms and this is the worst. So it's hard to get systems to blow up when the atmosphere is putting all the best motion over here and not there. It's like a lid. We did get a few tropical systems coming out in the East Pacific, but they were forming way over here away from this. That's one thing. Let's go look at another thing. In the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and this is the one that got me, mid-levels of the atmosphere, look at the air temperature. So you know that the best way to make a big thunderstorm or a cluster of thunderstorms that can become a tropical system is to have very hot ocean temperatures, hot low-level atmosphere with plenty of humidity, and then cold air aloft. There's been no cold air aloft. It's not just here. It's all the way to the top of the troposphere. Very, very warm air. You're going, okay, explain that to me again. Here it is. Listen. You want to make consistent, big tropical thunderstorms that become tropical depressions, tropical storms, and then hurricanes. You got to have all this be cold. 2020, it was cold in here. 2005, it was cold in here in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This year, warm. So what does that mean? That means the stability was high, and I missed that. And you just need to know that I missed it. I should have been paying attention to this. This is tropical Atlantic vertical instability. And what we would have seen if we would have had really active hurricane season was this blue line way up here above the black one, which is the average. Instead, our stability has been very, very low. It's been suppressed, which is why we've had a difficult time making tropical systems. That's bullet point number 2. Here's number 3. This is a wind shear vector map. Okay, whoops, now I drew an arrow on accident. Let's get that off there. This is a wind shear vector map. There we go. Between the low levels of the atmosphere and up where the jet stream should live. Now, if you're going to have an active hurricane season, you can't see these colors. It's got to be this. And what was coming off of Africa and our main development region? You see a lot of high wind shear values, meaning anytime a thunderstorm did show up, it was sheared apart, meaning that it briefly was intense, but it couldn't concentrate its heating to help lower the pressure around it, to promote the formation of new thunderstorms that develop into tropical depressions, storms, and hurricanes. Too much shear. So MJO was in the wrong position, too warm and honestly too dry aloft, and the wind shear was too high. And all of that came together to make this hurricane season what it was. Now, here's the thing. The wind shear lately has come back toward normal. We still have another basically 2 months of hurricane season to go before we get out of the hurricane season and start to press toward winter. So it's a reminder, you are here. And the peak of the hurricane season is still 15, maybe to 20 days away. And then we have the whole second half of the hurricane season to go. And what I'm trying to say is some of those environmental variables which have been suppressing the hurricane season are starting to come off. Now, that's not me. I'm not ringing the alarm bell yet, but I want you to know that going forward, we need to be paying attention to the National Hurricane Center's website, NHC. It's this guy right back here. Watch this one daily. Bookmark it. Check it on your phone. Be letting them update you on when these systems are coming through. Because the fact is the Atlantic Ocean is still very warm. And if we start to see these other conditions become more favorable, the tropical season is going to get going. Now, I've been asked numerous times this week, which means someone else is talking about this, that there is an Atlantic La Nina. Have you all heard any of that? Okay. Well, La Ninas are in the Pacific. It's when the trade winds are strong, the cooler water upwell. But I'm having people talk to me a lot about this. Why is there cool water showing up here? What's that all a part of? Well, if you look at those winds again, you'll see there's stronger trade winds here and there's stronger trade winds there. We don't call these strong trade winds La Nina. We call these strong trade winds La Nina. This is a part of something different. And in my nerd world, we call this the AMM, the Atlantic Meridional Mode. And reality about that particular mode is this. Whenever these ocean temperatures are really warm, and there's stronger trade winds here, and honestly, there's also stronger trade winds there, keeping the cooler waters coming up to the surface, that is when the AMM is in its very positive mode. Now, normally, when it does that, we tend to see a major drop-off in pressure and stronger winds guiding tropical systems in this area. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wind shear problem, but we tend to have some stronger winds guiding systems over into the Gulf of Mexico. But the pressure is typically very low when that occurs, meaning when the AMM is positive like it is now, we tend to have an active hurricane season. What outdid the positive Atlantic Meridional Mode was the fact that the MJO was over here. We had too warmer conditions aloft there, so it didn't get to do what it typically does, which is to drop the pressure in this area and make more hurricanes. My point to you right now is just to say that the Atlantic Meridional Mode is still a piece of this puzzle. And if we get these other factors to back off, we do expect the second half of this hurricane season to likely get going a bit. And that's also going to weigh heavily on the South American forecast, which I'm going to come back to again at the end of this video. You see, the Atlantic Meridional Mode is often associated with a delay in the start of the monsoon. Right now, though, the models are not calling for a delay, and that is critical. You need to pay attention to that. Corn, soybean growers, and cotton growers in the Ag South, Ag Carolina territories, just listen. This is likely not going to happen if the models are right. So I'm going to come back to that again in a few seconds. So I wanted just to give you some things I'm watching in the tropics and try to make a story out of why things have been the way they are and where I think they're going to go in the near term. And the reality is we got to keep an eye right now because it seems as though the tropics are waking up. Things are beginning to shift around. All right, that's my main story. Okay, what about, where was I in this slide deck here? Right here. What about what's going on right now? It is really stinking hot and gross. We finally moved all of that excessive heat out of the Mid-South toward us. We spent most of August on the dry side of things. Not on the dry, but the cooler side of things. Now it's hot. We've got excessive heat issues going on here. This is a heat advisory that's been put out, and we're going to see some hot days to finish this week getting into the weekend. Now, in terms of severe weather, it's all north of us. We do have some chances of storms here. I'll show you those in a few moments. But the big front's coming through Minnesota again today, where we've had repeated rounds of severe weather in the upper Midwest again. The front dives into the Midwest here, and then it gets into the Northeast. But we got chances for some storms coming through. And I want to show you kind of a bigger picture of what that looks like. Now, you're going to watch a front dive out of the Midwest as we go through today into tonight. And you'll notice, take a look at this, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. There are isolated storms in this pattern. As we play this forward, though, the big front dives in the Midwest It keeps moving through Friday morning. What do we see again tomorrow? Isolated storms have a chance in the Carolinas. We then play this out to Friday into Saturday. And again, there are isolated chances of storms. You say, why? It's going to pop on the heat. The big front's still coming. It's all going to pop on the heat. In fact, I'm going to take you down there and look real close. Let's go into the southeast. Look at that same animation. Ready? Let's shrink that up. Here we go. Here's our storm chances tonight. See the isolated behavior? Keep an eye on the radar. Overnight hours, things back off. Friday mid-afternoon and evening, isolated storms. We then go forward. This is now getting into Saturday morning, afternoon, isolated storms. The front's not there yet. So if you add all that up, you'll just see dots of locally heavy rain. And it won't fill in perfectly like this, but it looks like North Carolina's got the best chance going forward. Now, if you're in Georgia, I think you're too much suppressed by high pressure and you can't get it. But a little bit farther to the north, better chances of storms. And the issue here is look at Georgia's soil moisture. We have dropped off significantly in southwest Georgia. And there's pockets of lower soil moisture here. And the very top soil has already been depleted significantly because of the recent flash drought. This is down 16 inches. You're still seeing the effect of Debbie in this area. But notice the Ohio River Valley and the Delta. Right now at Memphis, the Mississippi River is at 4.28 feet below low stage. That is actually lower than where it was a year ago at this time. And we went into a very, very dry fall. So I've had talks with people that are in the Mid-South right here that are actually wanting a hurricane. They want something slow to come up here and break this drought before it gets any worse going forward. So where are we going forward? Next 7 days is shown here. This is the 7-day WPC forecast for total rainfall. You look at it and you see a lot of the Ag South, Ag Carolina territory getting something out of this. The NBM, the National Blended Models, very similar forecast for the 7 days. And we add out to 10 days, it's really trying to increase coastal precipitation. Let's see if that's also in the AI forecast. Here's the 7-day artificial intelligence forecast, and here's the 10-day. And I'm going to show you, if you come in here into the southeast, take a look at this. The AI forecast is really aggressive over the next 10 days of at least a couple of inches of rain. But most of this is not this week, it's next week. And I'll show you that better in a few moments, but we got to complete our model run here. This is the European operational run, not the AI. You do see some holes showing up. Going out 10 days though, wetter across parts of southern Georgia, wetter along the coast. And the GFS, that's 7-day to 10-day. It's wet for everybody. This model just loves to give up the rain. So how about some probabilities? This is the chance at getting over an inch in the next 10 days. And if we kind of just zoom in here, let's zoom in on the southeast and get a closer look at this. Here are our probabilities. There's a lot of area in here over the next 10 days that's got a better than 50 to maybe up to 80% chance of grabbing some rain. And if we just stretch it out even farther, you'll see those rainfall chances improve as I take you all the way out into week 2. Is there risk of being drier? Always. And these are the spots where I think the chances are that we stay under a half inch for most of the next 10 days to 14 days. It's more in the interior. But again, you're going to see isolated storms in here in the next 3 days that could outdo this easily. That's why we're looking at probabilities here, not absolute amounts. But one thing is certain, every longer range model, day 8 through 14 is wetter. That's the CPC. This is the newest update from the European, wetter into week 2. And this is the GFS, which I finally have it corrected. And you can now see much better forecasts from the GFS. All of them are wetter into week 2. And I'll show you why in a few seconds. But overall, that's the near-term forecast, getting us out 2 weeks on precip. What about temperatures? Like I said, most of August was cool. It's only been lately that we've seen this heat wave that's come through. Most of the heat's been down in Florida, southern tier of Georgia, or it's been in Texas. But as we look at it, all the cooler weather we had is being replaced. Look at all these high temperature hits here, just yesterday and today, or really just yesterday coming through. But before that, you go a week ago, we were talking about cool weather. Remember that? That's where those blue dots are showing up here. That was the 24th, even a little bit into the 25th. It's only been the last couple of days. Ready? Here it is, getting up to the 27th, and now the 28th. There it is. So we've got hot weather in place today. A lot of deep 90s. As we go forward, though, that's Friday, another hot one. Saturday, still hot. Sunday, still hot. But Monday, Tuesday front comes through. You've got 5 more days of heat coming through. But once you get out there to Tuesday, Wednesday, we've got cooler weather sticking around. And I want to know how long it's going to stick around. So that brings me back to where I started with you all today. And take a look at this. When you look at the forecast pattern for next Tuesday, where are the troughs? There's one here and there's one there. And why I'm bringing this up is because from Tuesday into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what do we see reinforced? We see East Coast troughing. This is why you see the wetter forecast into week 2. The heat comes back into this side of the country. The coldest air is here. And so what this is going to do is this trough is making another trough here. They're kind of related in their wavelength. So you look out there day 5 through 10, and we don't see the excessive heat anymore. You look day 10 through 15, still no excessive heat. All of the heat's coming in because the pattern's doing that for the most part. That's a quick drawing, but that's what you've got. The ridging is all here. And it's even in the European model. That's day 5 through 10. And this is day 10 through 15. Which means after we endure the next 4 or 5 days of very hot conditions, we're going to back off again in terms of our temperatures. And some of the longer range models keep it around. Notice through mid-September, this is the 12th through the 18th, the 19th through the 25th, all the heat's up in Canada where the ridge is. We're expecting near normal mid-September temperatures. What the wild card is going to be is if there's going to be hurricanes coming out of this, because take a look. When I look at the pressure pattern, the Bermuda high is still sitting somewhere here. We are expecting flow to come around the bottom side of this. That's why the precipitation forecast over the 30-day time period of mid-September to mid-October, now you start to see much wetter conditions in this area showing up in the model. Zoom in on the United States, and I'm going to tell you something. This is not going to verify, because we will be getting tropical systems in this area that could easily just outdo this precipitation forecast. So I don't trust much on the precip side of things. The temperature makes more sense to me, but the tropical season's going. Now, speaking of the tropics, we have to pay attention to El Nino and its demise, which happened months ago, and now La Nina. Is La Nina going to be here? Because back in March, it was still El Nino, bumbling along here in neutral. We're now right there. What are these? These are ocean temperatures. If we were going to have a big La Nina, we'd see these lines dropping way down here, but we don't. We see them sitting around neutral. Now, look at this. This is a forecast for September between the Australians, the Canadians, the Europeans, the Japanese, the French, NOAA, which would be the United States, and the British. From September to October, November, December, what do you see? NOAA is the most aggressive. But NOAA has got a big wild card for me, and I'm going to show you this. IRI, there it is. What's baffling me about NOAA is that their official forecast seen here compared to their model forecast is entirely different. Their official forecast, which has human forecasters helping, is at 75% chance of La Nina in November, December, January. Their model forecast is that INSO-neutral conditions have just the same likelihood. In fact, by December, January, February, INSO-neutral is possible. When you look back at this diagram, this is their official forecast, not the model one, and they're the most aggressive. Most other forecasting agencies are looking at INSO-neutral conditions. Now you're going, okay, well, fine. What in the world does that mean? Well, it means this. Their latest forecast, which I'm about to show you, was heavily based on La Nina. So for example, in September, and they're going to update this tomorrow. You need to go to this site tomorrow, cpc.ncep.noaa.gov, or just Google Climate Prediction Center. When you look at it, that's a very typical La Nina September, with wet conditions across the south, primarily promoted by tropical systems. But I want you to come in here and go to 3-month. Let's do this together. Now you'll see their actual model forecast. And if we go to September, October, November precip, there's that dryness. What about October, November, December? See the dryness moving across the southern tier of the U.S.? November, December, January. This is now calling for some late fall into winter drought development. This is now December, January, February. Very dry across the southern tier of the U.S. Why? What does La Nina do? It gives us a very weak subtropical jet stream. It's very weak. The polar jet is weak, but much more variable, comes across like that. So wet here and wet there. But man, this is looking like a drier forecast. This is also being echoed by the new NMME model. September, October, November. Near normal precip, but watch. Fall. October, November, December. Drier air creeping across the southern tier of the U.S. Here it is again. November, December, January. Drier conditions. December, January, February. Drier. And I don't want to be talking about winter drought development. Like that's just the opposite. I want to keep moisture up in the winter so we're not going into spring with any problems. But this is suggesting, just like the CPC did, weaker subtropical flow at times with a much more variable northern jet. Now, you're going to ask, do I have any confidence in this? And the answer, I'll just write it so you don't forget. That's not a W. I wanted to say no. No, I don't have any confidence in this. You say, why not? Well, look, it's only NOAA's model that's aggressive. And they recently pulled back a little bit. And they're going to reevaluate this in the month of September. And these people are brilliant. This is not a criticism of them. They're very good forecasters. And I think it's going to change up their modeling forecast. But I will show you the international view of this. Same months. Let's go back. September, October, November. October, November, December. November, December, January. Again, these are the drier than normal conditions. Look, that's that winter drought scenario. December, January, February, still there. So in the Northwest, wet. In the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, wet. But right here, they're calling for dryness. And I don't buy it yet. I just don't. I think the jet stream is going to be much more variable than what's being suggested in terms of just being weak. And I don't think that this La Nina is really pulling its weight. I just don't see that it's going to be able to really full on give us dryness across the south, which is typical of La Nina. So I'm going to watch it. And I'll report back to you again in a month. My biggest feeling about this next month is when we talk next, we'll have more hurricanes that we'll have to talk about in retrospective coming through. So I'm going to leave you with one thing here. You need to bookmark this site. If you don't have it already, bookmark it, because this is going to be critical. The other website I want you to bookmark is mine, agweather.com, ag-wx.com, because this Labor Day weekend, I'm giving a complete overhaul of all of this, and you'll be able to see all of the weather forecast stuff I just showed you. You'll be able to see it down to your, down to your region. And I'm excited for that. And by the way, the partnership I have with Ag South and Ag Carolina makes this possible. So it's good stuff. I will keep you up to date on all of it. See you in a month. Thank you.